Okay, I think we should start now. Thank you for all those who joined now. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from those who are joining from various part of the different time zones. I am Fahim, joining from Sydney, University of Sydney here. I am one of the academic affiliate with National Poison Center Malaysia. I hope you all can hear me. Just give me a thumbs up in case if you can't
Recording
hear me.
in progress.
So today we are hosting this webinar in conjunction with National Poison Center Malaysia and who is the local organizer for upcoming Asia Pacific Association of Medical Toxicology that will be held from 11th to 14th of November. And we look forward to see all of you in that exciting conference. And before we have a short agenda today with an exciting and interesting talk from an expert who has been working on this topic for a long period of time and trained in Iran. I'll give his biography later. So without further ado, we will start the program. So I would like to ask the local organizers to sort of start by, like you've been seeing and listening to those videos. So we'll just start for those who come and join now. We'll play our promotional video. Just that only take a few minutes. So Can anyone play the video, please? All right, thank you. So before I introduce the speaker who has kindly accepted our invitation, I would like to give some housekeeping announcement. Please keep your audio muted throughout the session, just because we are recording these sessions. You can keep your video on as you wish. Just keep the audio muted throughout the session. And please use the chat function throughout. And I will be compiling those questions toward the end and will be directing that to our guest speaker. And we'll have a question Q&A time toward the end of the session after Professor Hossein's talk. And then for those who are USM staff and students and employees who will be publishing the QR code toward the end of the session, and that will be for the training purpose, and you'll have the points for that. So today's talk is very exciting and most timely important one, especially around this part of the world. And there are a lot of new research happening and new trends toward this compound. So as everyone aware about it, it is navigating the challenges of synthetic THC and novel psychoactive substances. So to deliver this talk, we have one of the experts from Iran. He's currently working in Australia, Western Australia, and he's one of my dearest colleagues. And we have been working together in our society for a long period of time. And I'm very proud to introduce Professor Hossein Hassanian, who is an experienced clinical toxicologist and addiction medicine specialist with almost 26 years in the practice. He has treated around 30,000 poison patients annually, with about 10,000 to 12,000 requiring hospitalization, which is a huge experience. Chemical exposure, toxic alcohol poisoning, and substances use are his everyday practice. Dr. Hossein has contributed significantly to the field of toxicology and the addiction medicine, published over 300 articles in peer-reviewed journals, very striking number, and international congress, and he presented very well. In October 23, he was ranked among the top 2% of the subfield scientists worldwide by Stanford University and Elsevier publishers. Updated science-wide author database of standardized citation indicators. He is currently very well known to our society in the field of toxicology. He's currently the president of the Asia Pacific Association of Medical Toxicology, and he's been serving it for over the last 2 years, and he's been a board member for a long period of time, and he also served in the scientific committee. So I'm very humbled to introduce Professor Hossein, and I'll hand over to you, Professor Hossein.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay.
We can see your slides as well, Professor Hossein.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for local organization and Professor Fahim inviting me for this venue. Actually, as Professor Fahim mentioned, we are dealing with different substances nowadays in different parts of the world, and possibly in Asia. We are, and specifically in low and middle income countries, we are not aware of the risks related to novel psychoactive substances. So briefly, I will introduce about these substances and how we should interact with these substances. My presentation is basically on the clinical aspects and also the poison control center aspects of these substances. How we can help these patients, or how can we make a policy in order to detect more substances and survive more patients that are poisoned by these substances. Okay. So as an overview, we should know that what are the synthetic cannabinoids and other novel psychoactive substances. And also we should know how they can threat to the public health, what we know about them and what we don't know about them, and what we should do for the next steps. This drug will, it is very important to understand the concept behind the novel psychoactive substances. It is made by an Australian institution that most of my talk are taken from their educational material. So later on you can go and back and see more about the different substances and their updates. As you can see here in this wheel, we have a core. They're basically introducing 7 different substances that many of us are familiar with, including opioids, depressants, stimulants, pathogens, dissociatives, cannabinoids, and finally psychedelics. So at the outer layer, you can see different substances that are situated in this wheel. For example, today I'm going to start with cannabinoids, that they have different categories, including synthetic cannabinoids, medical cannabis, butan hash oil, and cannabinoids. So sometimes we are confused about different categories and how if our patients are taking different drugs that are belong to one of those categories. And the problem most of the time is that those novel psychoactive substances are not detected easily. And possibly our knowledge on how to deal with these substances are very limited. Especially this concern is more among low and middle income countries that are actually importing those substances from the other countries. So my talk starts with cannabinoids. As you can see, they can cause different clinical manifestations. That people usually are taking this category because to be calm, to be relaxed, but at the same time, they may lose memory. They may have bloodshot eyes. They are excited. They are unmotivated. They may experience paranoia. They may experience dry mouth and be anxious. But it is not the case all of the time. And among different categories, you may see the different clinical manifestations. And even among a category, you can see different clinical manifestations, not because of the substance, but because of the environment. Probably you know that we all have cannabinoid receptors inside our body. Simply, it is categorized to CB1 that can be found mostly in the brain, and CB2 that can be found in the immune system and in the peripheral nervous system, actually. How these receptors that actually acts. And before going to the main subject, it is good to understand essential differences between cannabinoid that nowadays has a good standing inside the different branches of medicine, specifically for pain medicine and for oncology and for psychiatry. Although they are all affecting through the same receptors, but actually their clinical manifestations would be different. You can see on the left side, for example, that tetrahydrocannabinol or hashish or cannabis or marijuana usually people who are experiencing these substances get high because they are psychoactive. But on the other hand, if we are taking cannabinoids manufactured by actually research centers to deal with cancers, they have less psychoactive substances, and actually maybe we should consider them as non-psychoactive. And you can see on the left side that these cannabis or tetrahydrocannabinol categories are mimicking anandamide, while on the other hand, the cannabinoids are countering THC effect. They are anxiogenic, but CBD is anxiolytic. They may cause paranoia potentially, but on the other hand, CBD are essentially antipsychotic, and there are different researchers that focusing on antipsychotic efficacies of these substances. It can simulate and stimulate appetite using cannabis, but on the other hand, those cannabinoids may decrease appetite. Also, cannabis can induce sleep, while it can promote wakefulness in CBD. So even among different categories of cannabinoids, we have different clinical manifestations based on their analogs, actually. Essentially, these slides are saying the same, unless that how in clinical scenario we are using CBD as an anticonvulsant, as an antidepressant, and as an antioxidant, antipsychotic, neuroprotective, antiemetic, and anti-inflammatory, and finally, anti-tumoral for oncology patients to combat against different malignant tumors. Okay, I guess many of us are familiar with different benefits of cannabinoids, but what is the role of synthetic cannabinoids? How they are in the market, and how they are different from the other cannabinoids. As you can see in the left side of this slide, actually it is made by dried plant material. Usually the main material is cannabis, but they dried and they shredded, and then they also add some solvents to it to make it stronger and to make different chemical properties that finally come to the market and be presented as a natural drug that which is not true. Many of them in feature are very similar to cannabis, and I will show you the pictures from the market that actually I have taken last night from Mandra market, the city that I am working here, that how people are being deceived by these products to be good and to purchase them in order to get high. So from the beginning, it is good to understand the definition and our misunderstanding about synthetic cannabinoids against cannabinoids. Actually, as it is written here, it is true that it is originally designed to mimic or produce similar effects of cannabis. However, synthetic cannabinoids are not a synthetic form of cannabis and do not actually mimic the effects of tetrahydrocannabinol to activate and deactivate ingredients in cannabis. They produce a number of negative effects that are not caused by cannabis itself. For this reason, the term synthetic cannabis or synthetic marijuana that nowadays are used in the scientific literature or in the market is completely incorrect. You can see in the right side of the slide, different products are presenting to the market. They are colorful, they are tempting, but probably the good terminology to use and to reflect these products is to point to synthetic cannabinoid receptor agonists instead of synthetic cannabinoids, because all of them are affecting through the same receptors inside the body, either in central nervous system or in peripheral nervous system. It is very difficult to be up to date because we, as the pharmacists or doctors working in hospitals, in poison information centers, in healthcare professional institutions are somehow aware of the street slangs. So when someone is coming to us and introduce himself or herself using different drugs, we are confused, and it is good to have a resource to go there and see, for example, what does it mean if a client say, I am using a spice, or I am using K2, or I am using chronic. What does it mean? So being familiar with those slangs potentially is one of the different duties of our poison information centers, to get familiar the healthcare professionals to be to understand and raise their knowledge about these new psychoactive drugs. For example, spice was one of the earliest series of these synthetic cannabinoids. That's what introduced in Europe. And after that product, the other products coming out, including the other names with different analogs, essentially with a bit different in clinical manifestations. And nowadays, each year, different agencies, just their tax is collecting the different street names and different analogs in order to put them in the scheduled drug, not to allow marketing, but still we are behind the markets. And I will show you how the mafia actually is working on the market and producing and dispensing these substances, is working in order to be out of legal issues, and how we can contract with these policy of those bad sites. All of them actually refers to the national poison information centers that should provide enough information for health policy makers in order to do the scheduling of drugs and people get less affected by these substances. You can see that potentially many of the clients of these markets are using these drugs because They may want to have sexual affair. They may want to have more calmness, more fun, whatever the young population usually may keen to take these products from the market. They advertise their products like that. How they are using, how people are using cannabis and why. They are most commonly used by smoking, but vaping, ingesting, and snorting is the other ways that people may face these substances. The onset of the symptoms may be rapid as within minutes. They are inexpensive. They are readily available even through the social media. They have psychoactive effects, and it is pretended that they are safe. And on top of those things is that we as healthcare professionals are not able to detect most of them in our routine drug screening test. We are the available trade of substances are very, very limited. And we are not inside the hospital, inside the different clinics to detect if our patients, if our clients are using these drugs. And usually our knowledge is coming from the background and history taking from the clients. Otherwise, just in a few research centers, possibly they are working on it to detect and to put them in a scheduled drug in line with the policy of the country. One of the most interesting aspects of these cannabinoids is that they can affect differently. The size, the weight, and the health of the client, the size of the packages are completely different. And apart from that, if someone has, for example, health problems and taking these substances, potentially they are more at risk of harm and risk of morbidity and mortality. So based on the target of these substances and based on the health record and health background of these patients, we may face different clinical manifestations. But usually the cause of death, we can say, is due to cardiovascular accidents, especially ischemia and tachyarrhythmia. And on the other hand, we have some indirect effect of these products because of the psychoactive properties of these products and the different behaviors that people can mimic after using these drugs. The other things that probably affect the clinical manifestations is the geographic and the location of the substance, of the environment that people are taking. For example, if the people or if the patients are taking these drugs in the streets, the manifestation can be different from those who are taking these products in a dancing club, for example. So between set and setting of the using these drugs, we may have different clinical manifestations. Depends on the psychoneurological background of the patients and also the effect of those background on the coming the effects that may manifest, may be appeared in the patients. Also, like the other drugs, the amount that they are taking, the concomitant ingestion of the other drugs, the strength of the drugs that can be different from batch to batch because they are not standard packages, and the environment, as I said, that they are taking those the drugs are factors that may affect these people. Anyone can affect, but young people age 20 to 30, especially in male population, are predominantly more affected. And the use of other concomitant substances, including tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, or other psychoactive drugs, may mimic different outcomes in these clients. In specific populations, in prison population, military services, also we may see the cluster of illness and also sometimes epidemics of, limited epidemics of these substances in those areas. Actually, what we don't know about these substances are more than what we know about these substances. Our knowledge are more and more behind the market. We are not aware of the number of users and pattern of use in our patients. We are not aware of many health effects of emerging compounds, especially delayed presentation or delayed or chronic manifestations of exposure to these substances. We are not aware to detect how people are exposed to these substances. Even sometimes we are not aware of what antidote we should use because we are not aware the category of these substances. It is especially important to understand that many of these products are a combination of different new substances. And possibly, for example, we had new outbreak in Australia for nitrazine that in many of the patients it was used, the main product was used plus benzodiazepine. So actually people were presented to the hospital because of the concomitant use of a benzodiazepine and opioid. So possibly just using naloxone is not enough to reverse, considering that, for example, we need a lot of naloxone to counteract the effect of the fentanyl poison patients or the other analogs of fentanyl that are resistant to the naloxone. So it is good to discuss these things and review them in the mortality and morbidity report of the hospitals or poison information centers, what we should do for the coming patients and how we should address the treatment. Oh, as I said, the effects are completely different. Sometimes are the effects, good for the patients, including relaxation and euphoria. But sometimes it is life-threatening, like tachyarrhythmia, anxiety, seizure, stroke, rhabdomyolysis, hyperthermia, hypertension, psychosis that they may harm themselves or they may harm the other family members or friends or even the community. This slide actually is comparing the effect of our conventional tetrahydrocannabinol or marijuana compared to synthetic cannabinoids. You can see in synthetic cannabinoids, you may have extremely high blood pressure, dilated pupils. Also, some of them may not able to speak. Some of them may present with tachyarrhythmia, with nausea and vomiting, kidney failure, tremor, muscle cramping, seizure. And in terms of psychoneurological manifestations, that sometimes is more dangerous than the effect of the physical manifestations of these products is paranoid delusion, depression, suicidal thoughts, psychosis. Sometimes they are very aggressive and they may harm themselves. They may start driving in the community and harm the other people because of the severe agitation and loss of coordination, being hallucinated, and even sometimes they cannot memorize what they did for the other people. I've already talked between my presentation about the set and setting. It is completely relevant to the mood of the patients and the environment that the patients are taking these products, as I said. I'm not going to talk about different structures, but briefly, synthetic cannabinoids have different structures from phytocannabinoids that usually we are referring to cannabis, or endocannabinoids that existed in our body system, in our immune system. How about the long-term effect of these products? It may cause dependency. These kind of synthetic novel substances. They may face memory loss, paranoia. They may be extremely suspicious and frightening. They may experience psychosis. On the other hand, in the long term, they may experience withdrawal symptoms that need some intervention in order to calm the clients because they are dependent, and they may seek other drugs in order to calm themselves. It is very important to make everything confidential, because sometimes they are afraid of legal aspects of presenting to hospitals or asking different authorities. These concerns are more evident in low and middle income countries. And it is good to remind them that we are not police officers, we are healthcare professionals. We are going to help them. They can trust to us and do whatever we can do. Otherwise, if they lose their trust, actually they are not harmful only for themselves, they are harmful to the community. If the clients or if the patients are taking other categories of drugs that I have already mentioned on the drug wheel, sometimes it makes a tragedy, actually. Making a combination of antidepressants with new substances or sometimes stimulants actually may make more heart problems for these clients. Also, back to the drug wheel, sometimes you can see the effects of the other category of the drugs that are added to these products in order to make a new product, but actually sometimes it makes more difficulty in order to treat these clients and these patients. In case of overdose, we have no specific clinical issues, but many of the patients are coming with tachyarrhythmia, chest pain, breathing difficulties, severe hyperthermia, and delusional behavior. Essentially, most of the time, you can see the overdose very similar to psychostimulants. And somehow we are treating the patients in the same way, using benzodiazepines on top of many other things. But it is not a whole story, because you're not aware of the fact that if they are using only one substance or they are using a combination of different substances. In terms of withdrawal syndrome, they may face insomnia, nausea, vomiting after a brief period of time. Also, loss of appetite, paranoia, panic attack, agitation, anorexia, and also mood swings and tachycardia. What is the concern? These two pictures are taken last night from Mandro Market. You can see everything is fine, like a cannabis, very colorful. However, on the other hand, in the background, they use synthetic tetrahydrocannabinols in order to make it more powerful and even a little amount of these substances may have huge effects of the physical and mental health of the patients. So the problem is misleading packaging that always they pretend this is herbal. The ingredients that they add to it, different batches in the same product, and taking in combination to other drugs, and people, especially after legalization of tetrahydrocannabinol, feel free to drive and work with machinery vehicles, and because many of these patients are using other drugs, so they have already have mental background on using drugs and possibly physical dependency on other drugs. So it makes everything very complicated and very difficult somehow to treat the withdrawal and even the overdose cases. But the only issue is that to detect. Yeah, I'm going to finish. Just, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Just today we talked about the synthetic cannabis, but the other new substances and other novel psychoactive substances among the drug wheel are different, and we can see the new substances in depressant category, in stimulants, in hallucinations. And unfortunately, there is no set rules for these substances, and many of them are known as legal substances. So back to the drug wheel, different substances nowadays are categorized, their analogs as new psychoactive substances, novel psychoactive substances. I'm going to pass different categories, but it is good to have some knowledge about the worldwide aspects of seizures of these drugs, actually. As you can see in this slide, different substances are used globally. And if you see the trend of detection of seizure in the different substances from 2016, the trend is lowering. But the bad news is that the potent drugs are existed in the market because our ability to detect those drugs are more advanced compared to the past, but still we are behind the mafia market. And despite of ongoing scheduling in different countries, there are 3 times as many identified novel psychoactive substances than there are in psychoactive substances under international control. So here in the left side, you can see substances under international control. And here on the right side, you can see the substances that we are detecting each year, or we were detecting in the previous year. And the trend is coming up and up because our ability to detect those substances are higher and higher. This is the portion of each substances. Globally, psychostimulants are the first rank among novel psychoactive substances, and after that one, synthetic cannabis are the second rank. And finally, you can see the role of opioids that we can do something for our clients are coming up. And the good example of this novel new psychoactive substances are nitrazine, that nowadays we have epidemic in Europe Australia, and United States. Thank you. Again, if you need more information, you can follow this actually website, which has from Australian government, and you can find new substances in different categories with different slangs, but possibly each country should have their own scheduling drugs and their own actually scheduling substances based on the epidemiology of substances in each country. So the question for our audiences is that how we can address these substances among our community, and what is the role of poison control centers in the way forward in order to reduce the mortality and morbidity of new substances. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Hossein, for that informative talk. Was very informative and covered most of the areas relevant to Asia Pacific region. Okay, so we can open the floor for questions. So if any participants want to speak, please unmute yourself, and you can pass on your questions. Otherwise, you can also post it on the chat, and there were a couple of questions which I will direct you to shortly. So if anyone wants to speak, please free to talk. So, Prof. Hossein, can you unshare your screen, please?
Excuse me, can I ask? Sir?
You can still see your other screen.
Can I ask the professor?
Is it unshared? I cannot see.
It's still shared, yeah. You can stop sharing it. So anyone asking questions from the audience?
Yeah, please. Can I ask? My name is
Anas.
Yeah, my name is Anas Delbi. I am a PhD student in USM. My specialty is artificial intelligence. Actually, I was working in the labs. I was working in software for the drug of abuse people. But the question is, what is the best practice to test the patient sample? I mean, what's the best company that can detect the drug of abuse people? Because as the doctor mentioned, as the professor mentioned, they are updated year after year. So what's the best company that we can deal with to test the patients? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Actually, there is not a specific company dedicated to only work on this field. There are different companies working on this. But the problem is that they are far behind the market. And whenever they present something to the market as a commercial kit, possibly on the next year, you will face another substances that cannot be detected by those commercial kits, unfortunately. So back to advanced, techniques that usually toxicologists or pharmacologists are using in their laboratory to detect these analogs is much better than relying on commercial kits.
Thank you, Professor Hossein. So I will take some of the questions from the chat. The first questions to you is, could you explain or share a bit more in terms of legislation, legal framework for these synthetic cannabinoids? I understand they may not fall under the same legislation as the rest of the drugs of abuse.
Thank you. Actually, in the past, the experience was that use on, detect a specific substances and introduce them on the scheduled drugs. But nowadays, fortunately, authorities are asking for the analogs of the different drugs that are presented in the community. But the data is, as I presented, shows that we are 3 times each year, we are 3 times behind the scheduling, meaning that possibly many of our clients or our patients are using different drugs while they think it is legal, and actually based on the scheduled drug on that year, they are considered legal. And it is a big issue for policymakers in substance use field, how to address this issue. And I guess to talk about this, we should invite some epidemiologists or some policymakers to work with them in order to understand how we can deal with this policymaking. Unfortunately, these discussions are usually among developed countries. And for many low and middle income countries, it is not the case. Just we are following and we are mimicking the previous legislation from the other countries that might not be helpful in many cases. Anyway, I am not a good person to address this issue.
Yeah, that's a very important topic, and we'll be covering some of those during our conference in November. So we kindly invite everyone to join that informative session on all the updated session. Visit our website, APMT24. So if you Google it, you will find it. And the organizers will also put the web link on the chat. So those who have requested the recording, so this will be available via YouTube. So you can always watch at any time. That will be made available later. Thanks, Prof. Hossein. The other question is related to, do you think the route of exposure might affect the severity of symptoms? For example, we are encountering synthetic cannabinoid use in vape liquids, and patients mostly develop psychosis and aggressive behavior, seizures, and syncopial attack.
Of course,
yeah.
Yeah, of course, the route of exposure is very important. Those who are taking, oral ingestion, or their manifestations are, and the severity of manifestations are not as good as those who are taking, for example, via inhalation or via sniffing. They are completely different, like the other drugs. So there is no exception in this field. But I should say, we cannot say that if someone is taking an oral drug, almost always it would be less, they have less effects than those who are sniffing the drugs. So depends on the people, depends on the dose, and depend on the route. All of these severities could be different.
Okay. So thanks. If I understood the next question correctly, I don't know whether it is, I think, what do you think, doses of naloxone have any effect, or does naloxone have any effect on synthetic cannabinoid overdose?
If we are producing synthetic cannabinoids in our own laboratory, I should say no. But you're not sure about the synthetic cannabinoids that are presented in the market. So, as a clinical toxicologist, I usually refer to the clinical manifestations. If they are coming with, for example, low respiratory rate, or myotic pupils, or sedative coma, I don't hesitate to administer a dose of naloxone. I don't lose anything, considering that our laboratory and has limited facilities to detect those drugs. So I should rely on the clinical manifestations on most of the time.
Yeah. All right. So I think the questions are pouring now, Professor Hossein. So that's the next one is, are substances categorized as NPS are different from country to country? Obviously, yes, I guess.
Yeah.
Categorization and legislations are different country to country. Yeah, definitely. You can add on to that.
Yeah, I have the same thought that they are different, but also our categorization would be different. You know, in my presentations, for example, I put MDMA or ecstasy on as empathogens, but in many categories, it is categorized as stimulants. So they can probably, sometimes we are covering, it is not an exact line to say, for example, this substance is completely psychostimulant and is not, for example, dissociatives. No, there are some coverages.
Yeah.
All depends on the receptors that they are occupying, actually.
Okay, any more questions from the audience? Please, we have posted a link for the CPD point, so please, we have some stuff you can claim from that. So, Professor, I got a question now. Given the extensive use or misuse of CBD, now it's been tried in various treatment programs. So, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, as I said, especially for cannabinoids, many of those substances are legally produced in research centers.
Yeah.
And they are working on the potential benefits of occupying receptors without occupying the psychoactive properties of those receptors. And it has a good benefit, as I said in the previous slides. Many of them are using in anti-tumoral medications, also to treat psychosis, to treat pain. Yeah, they are completely different, and you can see potential harms and potential benefits using different cannabinoids. And there is room for improvement, but the problem is that what is presenting in the community is far behind what we intend to use for cannabinoids. So it is an illegal market.
Okay, so we probably will entertain one more last question. I just want to add to what you have added now. Cannabinoid also tried in alcohol use disorders for alcohol withdrawal and treatment. There are trials happening in Australia currently, elsewhere as well. So that's some of the other substance use disorder that is now being tested along with other existing treatment plans. Okay, our last question is, what are the primary challenges laboratories face in detecting NPSs in your country? I don't know whether you can answer, but you probably might give some hint on that.
The main challenge is detection of those substances, because actually many of our data are post-mortem data. And in emergency departments, we are not, we cannot use the routine laboratory exam to detect those substances, unfortunately. So one of the strategies that people nowadays have more attention to it is to encourage people to bring their substances to a laboratory to detect the ingredients. So in that way, actually the system get ready for possible outbreaks or for possible harms of the drugs that have already been dispensed or distributed among the community. From state to state, the policy is different. In some states of Australia, actually, this program is running on the biological samples. And so depends on the states. They have different policies, but still we are far behind the detection of the new substances, especially in emergent situation.
Okay, Professor Hossein, I think with the interest of time, so we will close the session. It is a great pleasure, and thank you for your time. And despite your busy schedule, you recently moved to Australia. I know a lot of things to do, and you kindly accepted our offer on behalf of National Poison Center and the local organizers of the APF, Asia Pacific Association of Medical Toxicology Conference will be held in Penang. We'll be kindly thanking you for all your help, and we, in fact, looking forward to see you there as well. So just to remind you, all those who haven't, who wants to claim their CPD points, please scan the QR code that was posted, or that the link was also available, and please reach out to the NPC if you have any questions. I really appreciate the huge audience attendance today, and really overwhelmed with that, and also a very good interactive session we had. And thank you, Professor Hossein, and the team from National Poison Center Malaysia. Just to remind you, like we have this conference happening, and there are two pre-congress sessions as well, one on natural toxins, and the other one is on herbal medicine. So we look forward to see you in November, and we will wind up the meeting with the final promotion video. And thank you all for joining today.
Thank you again for inviting me. Thank you very much.
So Fazil, you can play the final video.